My name is Iftikhar, and even writing this down forces me to pause for long moments. Again and again, I feel as though I am being pulled back into that same night, that same silence, that same bitter cold wind, and the same trembling that ran through my entire being. That night begins creeping back into my hands. I am from a town in Sindh that people call a city, but from the inside it was completely a village at heart. Its narrow lanes had the same piles of dry leaves, the same mud that collected filth, the same silent afternoons broken only by the distant sound of buffalo bells or the cry of some child far away. Our house stood right at the edge of the road, and not much of a road either. So narrow that if two motorcycles came face to face, one would have to angle aside. Along the full length of the front of our house ran a line of thick bushes. The house itself had 3 rooms. Very simple. The white lime on the walls was peeling in places. The ceiling carried damp stains that my father had been talking about fixing for years but never quite managed. In one corner of the house sat the small shop that had kept our family going. One door of the shop opened into the house and the other onto the street. Through that inside door I would walk to the shop every morning and evening. Whenever I stepped inside, the shop's particular smell always greeted me, a smell no one else might notice, but which I, sitting there day after day, knew very well. 4 of us lived in that house, my mother, my father, and one sister. Another sister was already married and lived nearby. Her husband Faraz was also my cousin and, in many ways, filled the role of an older brother for me. My father's health had been declining for some time. Sometimes his breathing would quicken, sometimes there was a heaviness in his chest, sometimes he would feel dizzy. Because of this, I had taken over the running of the shop. In the beginning it was very hard. Customers were few. Some days the total sales barely reached 300 rupees. Many nights, when I pulled down the shutter, the thought would come to me that perhaps I should leave all this and go to a bigger city, Karachi or Hyderabad. But my father's condition held me in place. He could not go anywhere on his own, and I could not bring myself to leave him. Then one day I made a decision. I would make something better of the shop. I took a small loan. Faraz contributed some money. New glass displays, new shelves, a wider range of goods, children's toys, cold drinks, new brands. Slowly the shop began to thrive. The number of customers grew. Neighbors started complimenting me. They would say, "Iftikhar, the shop looks really good now." In those days, for the first time in my life, I felt something close to peace. But a person never knows what is hiding just behind their peace. That year, the winter was unusually harsh. When the wind blew, it carried a strange, dead coldness inside it. At night the streets would sink into a silence so complete it felt as though the entire city had simply stopped existing. On that particular night, as I always did, I closed the shop at 9 o'clock. I came inside through the connecting door. My mother warmed the food. We all sat together. My father complained about his health. My sister said she would take him to the doctor the next day. After dinner I went to my room. My room had an old wooden charpoy. Its ropes would give a faint creak now and then, a sound I had long grown used to. I pulled the blanket over myself and fell asleep. But at midnight, my eyes snapped open. It felt as if someone was hammering hard on the shop door. I lay completely still and listened. Silence. Then, 3 sharp knocks. Thack, thack, thack. Like someone desperately urgent. I got up slowly, wrapped the blanket around my shoulders against the fierce cold, and opened my bedroom door. Outside in the corridor, darkness and cold were both waiting for me. The light was off. Step by step I made my way to the inside door of the shop. Silence on the other side. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing at all. I opened the door. The shop was in near darkness. I called out loudly, "Who's there?" No answer. I opened the outer door onto the street. The cold outside was biting. The bushes swayed in the wind. The road was completely empty, no person, no animal. I stood there for a while, then told myself it must have been someone in need who had grown tired of waiting and left. I went back to my room and slept. In the morning I told the family. Everyone said it was just nerves, the wind makes all kinds of sounds. I nodded along. The next night it happened again. This time the sound was different, like something shifting inside the shop. Like a shelf of glass sliding slightly. Like a crate nudging across the floor. I went again. The shop was empty. Everything in its place. The family again said there was nothing to worry about. But the night that has lived in my bones ever since, that came next. That day everything was ordinary. I opened the shop in the morning, customers came, Faraz stopped by in the evening, my mother cooked. At 9 I closed up, came inside, had dinner, sat with the family for a while, then went to my room. That night sleep was slow to come. The cold was worse. I turned from side to side, adjusted the blanket repeatedly. Eventually sleep took me. Then, at exactly 1 in the morning, it felt as though something enormously heavy had crashed to the floor inside the shop, so violently that my ceiling shook. I sat bolt upright. My heart was slamming. The house was completely silent. I got up slowly, placed my bare feet on the cold floor, and made my way to the shop door. I placed my hand against it. Complete silence on the other side. Then I opened it gently and stepped inside. The moment I stepped in, another thunderous crash came from behind me. I spun around. And what I saw changed my life forever. A woman was standing there, draped entirely in black. Her height was so extreme that her head appeared to be pressing against the ceiling. Her hair was immense and tangled, falling across her face and hiding it completely. I tried to scream. No sound came. My throat had simply closed. I tried to step back. My feet would not move, they were fixed to the ground as if nailed there. Then my eyes fell to her feet. Her feet were reversed, facing backwards. And she was not standing on the ground. She was suspended in the air. Her body swayed very slightly, the way a heavy object hangs from a thread. My heart stopped. My breath stopped. Darkness rushed in from the edges of my vision and swallowed everything. I had fainted. When I came back to consciousness, the first light of morning was pale on the window glass. But my eyes were not ready to face the world. A wave of cold moved through me as though someone had driven nails into my very existence. My mother's face was close to mine. Her eyes held a strange mixture of fear and disbelief. She kept pulling at my hands, saying, "Get up, son, get up." When I forced my eyes fully open, I saw my father sitting half upright on the sofa, shaking, his lips grey, barely able to speak. My sister told me she had found me and pulled me up, that my face had been white as paper, that I was drenched in sweat and struggling to breathe. I put my hand to my chest. My breathing still felt scattered. My heartbeat was out of control. My entire body was numb. A strange unfamiliarity had settled over the house that morning. A silence that said everything without speaking a word. I told everyone what I had seen, the woman, the reversed feet, my collapse. My voice was trembling with every word, but every word was the absolute truth. Faraz came immediately. He listened, shook his head, but the worry in his eyes was plain. He said we should see a doctor right away. My father, however, said we should first check his heart, because he felt this could be related to a physical shock or blood pressure. They took me to the hospital. The doctor found my blood pressure high, my heart had been hammering from fear, but no lasting physical problem was found. He wrote a prescription, gave me some medication, and said that mental pressure could produce exactly these kinds of symptoms. But on the way home, none of that brought any comfort to my soul. What I had seen in that shop was no ordinary illusion or cardiac episode. Its presence had been solid, real, impossible to deny. In daylight, I examined everything carefully. The arrangement of the shelves, the dust on the glass display, the small fragments scattered on the floor, everything appeared as before. But evening was coming again, and every moment of every evening was becoming a terrifying test for me. In the days that followed, the occurrences multiplied. Sometimes at 2 in the morning, the sound of objects colliding in the cutting night air. Sometimes the sound of footsteps inside the closed shop. Sometimes a warmth that felt as though someone had placed a hand on my back and forced me to feel the pain of being alive all over again. I tried every possible way to rationalize it. Exhaustion. Too much work. Disrupted sleep. But one evening, sitting with Faraz, I looked toward the shop and saw something, a faint shadow-like shape moving behind the shelves. My heart broke and fell. Faraz looked at me and said, "That's just nonsense." But there was fear in his eyes too. That night Faraz said this was not something ordinary. We needed to consult a religious man, a knowledgeable scholar or a respected elder. The next morning we located a well-known Maulvi Sahib from our area, a man who came from a distant village and whom people considered expert in Quranic recitation and spiritual remedies. By sunset his attendant had come to our house, and the following day the Maulvi Sahib arrived himself. He conducted a thorough inspection of the shop. He touched various places with his hands. He recited several verses in a low, calm voice. Then he said, "There is the influence of jinn here." But the way he said it carried such steadiness that the listener felt not despair but the first stirring of hope. He said that at night he would sit inside the shop with us and perform the spiritual recitation. We spread a large sheet on the floor. He arrived with a tasbih and certain oils. He sat and prayed, recited the Quran, and performed specific supplications. As the sun went down and the light dimmed, a particular fragrance spread through the shop, as though a specific essence had been released, slowly filling every corner. In the darkness of the night, after we had closed the door and the Maulvi Sahib began, nothing dramatic happened at first. Only the absorbing silence of Quranic recitation. But 3 hours later, a tremendous scream shook the entire house. A scream as though something had struck the ground with all its force and expelled every last ounce of its strength. Immediately after, things began to fall. Drawer after drawer of the shelves flew open. Objects flew through the air and shattered before our eyes. I watched the Maulvi Sahib's expression change. His voice gained a sharp intensity. He accelerated into specific supplications. Faraz gripped his tasbih so hard during the recitation that his fingers had gone white as bone. Suddenly the light bulb went out. The moment the light died, a cold so extreme swept through the interior of the shop that it felt like needles puncturing the stomach. Everyone closed their eyes. We gripped each other's hands with all our strength. The Maulvi Sahib closed his eyes and was still for one single moment. Then, in a voice of sudden thunder, he began an invocation, and the moment he spoke a particular name, a foul and rancid smell that we had not noticed before hit me all at once. I felt it entering with my own breath. I tried to exhale it out, but it intensified. Then the Maulvi Sahib declared that jinn had settled here. They had chosen our house some days ago. The reason, he said, could be the shop itself, the silence of the place, or some vulnerability present in our hearts. He told us they would leave tonight, but we would have to do certain things. Specific supplications at night, certain preparations, lamp oil, and particular objects that he would cover and leave in place. We agreed to everything, because our hearts wanted nothing more than to be free of this weight. The Maulvi Sahib recited through the entire night. He continued until sunrise. During those hours I felt a chaotic gust of air pass through the shop. Everyone's face would go pale for a moment, then there would come a lightness, as though something had been pulled from inside us. At dawn the Maulvi Sahib said, "The jinn have departed for a period. If we kept the Quran and light constant in their place, they would not return." He gave us specific instructions: place a small dry cloth in the central corner of the shop, maintain recitation of the Quran morning and evening, and if any disturbance was ever felt again, seek spiritual remedy immediately. After he left, a few days of peace settled over the house. For the first time I noticed that my hands had stopped shaking. My sleep improved slightly. Customers kept coming to the shop. But for a full month I could not bring myself to open the shop. When I finally did, there was a sharp smell inside, like something heavy had been sealed away for a long time and was only now beginning to breathe out. I cleaned every corner, changed the oil, opened every shelf fully, straightened every item. After a few days everything returned to normal, and life slowly resumed its plain and ordinary current. But those nights, those screams, that woman, the Maulvi Sahib's voice, all of it had been written permanently into my memory. I thought it was all finished. But one evening, while pulling down a cloth from the top of a shelf, my hand stopped, touching something. It was cold. A kind of dampness that did not belong to anything living. I unfolded the cloth and found inside it a very old, yellowed sheet, as though someone had placed it there months ago. But none of us could remember ever putting anything like this there. The sheet had stains on it. The stains formed a shape, something like a face. One eye, perhaps two, perhaps something else altogether. I pulled the sheet out and felt its smell fill the whole house, not the smell of anything living, but of something that had rotted before its time. I threw it outside immediately. But that night, the same whispering returned. The same movements. Only now they came at specific times, not randomly, as though they were tied to some invisible thread and someone had begun pulling it. I tried to refocus on the shop, on work, on normalcy. But every time night came, my chest tightened. My sleep remained incomplete. And my dreams began forming into shapes I could neither understand nor describe. One night I dreamed that the woman was sitting beside me, speaking in my mother's voice. But there was nothing human in her eyes. I jolted awake and saw nothing there. In that moment I understood something. The Maulvi Sahib had driven out the jinn. But some small fragment, some familiar remnant, some residual shape, had remained behind, unable to fully depart. These faint, precise disturbances were becoming living images behind my eyes. Sometimes I thought I was losing my mind. Sometimes I was completely certain that the reality was something else entirely. The story ends here. But what I saw and endured, that has not ended. Even now, sometimes, in the silence of the night, it makes itself known. Reminds you that it exists. The only difference is that now I know, not every shadow is a jinn, and not every silence is peace.